Hi, I wanted to point out some of the possible symptoms and complications of eating disorders. Now, some of these I'll have to explain, and some of these are self-explanatory. Acne, which is self-explanatory. Constipation, which is self-explanatory. Telogen effluvium, which is a scalp disorder characterized by thinning or shedding of hair, resulting in loss of hair, essentially. So this is the loss of hair that we experience with eating disorders. Osteoporosis, which, as you know, is the loss of bone density that older people typically get, but we get it much younger in eating disorders. Pellagra, which is a vitamin deficiency disease caused by a chronic lack of niacin. And it is very serious because it is described by the 3Ds: diarrhea, dermatitis, and dementia. Cirrhosis, which is dry skin, and we know that with eating disorders we get very dry skin. Diarrhea, cardiac arrest, which is a heart attack, electrolyte imbalance, which is our electrolytes out of balance, and we need our electrolytes in balance to function. Scurvy, which is a disease that comes from not having enough nutrients. It was very common in the 1800s when people didn't have enough to eat. Amenorrhea, which is loss of period. And amenorrhea is serious because if a woman loses her period, she can get into all sorts of trouble. Water retention and or edema. So retention of water in the body. And that's not good. That's very unhealthy. It fills the tissue or cavities of the body. We need enough water. We don't need too much water. This is because the kidneys can't excrete the water. I personally suffered from edema quite severely when I was in my 20s. Hypokalemia, which is a low level of potassium in the blood. And symptoms may include feeling tired, leg cramps, weakness, and constipation. It increases the risk of an abnormal heart rhythm such as bradycardia and cardiac arrest. Hyponatremia is a low sodium level in the blood. Symptoms can vary from none to severe. Mild symptoms include a decreased ability to think, headaches, nausea, and poor balance. Severe symptoms include confusion, seizures, and coma. kidney failure, which ultimately can lead to death, tooth loss and cavities, which we know we have. And this doesn't just affect people with bulimia. This affects people with anorexia and binge eating disorder. More anorexia, though, and bulimia. Lanugo, which is that fine hair that develops over the body to try to protect the body from cold and loss of food. Death, which is an obvious complication. Brain atrophy. Which means decrement in the size of the cells, which can be due to progressive loss of cytoplasmic brain proteins, a loss of neurons and connections between them. And so conscious thought and voluntary processes may be impaired. And finally, suicide. And suicide rates are higher. Now, on death rates and suicide rates, I've read 1 out of 5 to 1 out of 10 people with this eating disorders die from their eating disorders. So it's the numbers jump around, but the point is it's the highest killer of all the mental diseases. And that's through death from cardiac arrest, suicide, and death from other incidents that occur because of the eating disorder. So 1 out of 5 to 1 out of 10. And those are some of the symptoms that we get from eating disorders. They should scare you. I hope they do. And if you haven't pushed that little red button that says subscribe, please subscribe. And I love y'all.